There we go, Twin Flames and the cult mind. Yeah, so I do think it is very connected to the topic that we talked about until here. It's something to do with, that there are illusions, and that may very well be the cult mind. But what does it have to do with Twin Flames? Is it like there is a cult mind full of illusions and people have it, and that's very bad and sad and awful, and it hurts, and that is the twin flame? Or people have this cold mind and it's very bad and sad and you would not want that, but it is not the twin flame thing, phenomenon, teaching, reality. Which one is it? And that's, I think, a big question, because, I mean, we can have the experience of a cult mind, and that often happens, with the most intelligent people, with it just, you can just pick that up without you wanting it. It is something that can happen when you're a prisoner of war, when you are coerced into a narcissistic relationship, when you are in an abusive relationship for 20 years, when you have grown up with abusers, when you magically believe deeply in certain stories that the media portray to you every day on all kinds of media, or that society feeds into you, that are really like stories. That could also be a cult mind. But the idea of cult, of course, means that there is a certain idea that is maybe like, in a sense, also like not mainstream. Often the idea of cult mind means that there's an idea that enters your mind and sort of gets stuck there, that is from a group that is a very small group. It's like a way of thinking that is belonging to a very small group of people that are only, I don't know, 12 people or like a couple million, but like a group of people, not mainstream thinking. That's what it's most connected to. But at the same time, you could actually very well say that it is supposed to be about a way of thinking that is actually not beneficial, because then it sounds like a problematic thing, the cult mind. So then you could say that can also be about mainstream ideas that are not beneficial for you. But for what part of you, like the soul in you or the personality in you? So it really depends on what you mean with it. And cult is actually a word that is also part of it. And people often say very easily, like, oh yeah, that's a cult. And then it's just, the idea is that it's supposed to convey that that's very bad, very awful, very coercive, very narcissistic, very bad for your mental health, bad for your emotional health, for your physical health, working against you, against your best interest, and all of that. And that people don't know that, but people that stand outside of that, they do know that because they can see it. So that's sort of how that word is often used. But if you really look closely at the word itself, then you hear much more that it's just a word. It's cult, and it comes actually from cultus. That is the cultus of adoring, bringing respect to culturally important gods, for instance, in certain cultures. That's a cultus, maybe also from non-religious things or topics. The cultus of something that people find important in life. Now, whatever I'm going to say about this topic, never come to the conclusion that I actually am preaching for harmful organizations that are out to scam you out of your money, to bring you physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual harm. with manipulative techniques. Because I'm not for that. Whatever I say, whatever the story will be for the rest today, that is never what I mean. So if you think that, then put that out of your mind. Because that is not so. But I do try to sort of detangle this word, the wording, cult mind. What is a cult? Let's detangle that a little bit so that you become more open-minded to maybe go to the truth of the matter, go deeper with it. Like, what is this? Because I have seen that it has been actually becoming a sort of a cult in itself to call Twin Flames a cult. And that's the new cult online. That was for some time. So the new cult is calling Twin Flames a cult. See? And then they're all starting to say that message and repeating each other. And then you start to see that is how a cult is formed. Have a certain idea, a certain mentality, and then repeat that often enough so that it becomes a thing, right? So, what is my experience? Because as you know, I'm in harmonious twin flame union since 2020. I've been initiated to pass that state of consciousness on that is here for you to have and to accept and to surrender into, so that you can have all the healing that it is really about, that I prepared for you with Divine Mother in this work. And a lot more than I can ever tell you. Well, for me, it encompassed a lot of healing. And one of the healings it encompassed to get where I am today, in the consciousness state that twin flames are about, and fully healed, both, and initiated as teacher. And all of it just really means that I have let go of the difference between me and Divine Mother to such a degree that we're not separate anymore. And Divine Mother stands for God, or the divine, or the universe, but the name doesn't matter. And in that whole complex of healing that I have experienced, there was a moment that I very clearly needed to be de-brainwashed out of a cult mind. And that was a very confusing time, where I didn't know anymore what was left or right, up or down. And I know very well what that is. And I'm incredibly intelligent, so that's not the point. This was a phase that I needed to go through. And for how I experienced it, it feels pretty universal. It's a universal experience that everyone goes through in their own way. You need to get rid of the cult mind. Because how it went for me, the process, and where it brought me, definitively and completely and utterly, was it delivered me into a place where I'm not unhealed anymore. That's like this strange, funny way of talking where you say double denials. I'm not unhealed anymore. So I'm healed there. I'm sobered up. I'm grounded, I'm rooted. I lost my illusions. And that's the place where it eventually was all about, where the whole process brought me. Just simply being sobered up in reality. But one of the things that was needed to get there was get rid of the cold mind. And it felt so universal. Everyone will go through it in some sort of way. And you need to get rid of it. And when you are in the result of the twin flame union process, landing on your realistic, true feet in God's reality, you will just need to have gone through that uncult mind, unbrainwashing, debrainwashing, deprogramming. That's my experience. You need to have gone through that. There's no other way. And what you see then is that what you were in before, it doesn't matter what that was, but you need to get rid of it. You need to be purified, cleaned up. Your thoughts, your memory, your belief systems, your mental space, your emotional space, your energetic space, your physical space needs to be purified. And whatever it is where you're stuck in, you just need to get rid of it. And often we don't know what we're stuck in. That's the whole point, right? That's why we do healing. That's why people experience it as there are phases and steps that seem strange and new and difficult. And it's not that it is difficult, because it's not, but it's the experiential phase can seem strange and difficult. Because we're in all kinds of dirt and dust and beliefs that are untrue and illusions that block our seeing, inner seeing, and ideas that prevent communicating with the divine directly and stuff. And that all needs to go. And whatever that is, you need to leave it behind to be able to land in your twin flame reality. That's just how it is. So to land in that twin flame reality, I needed to let go. And when I was in that exact moment that it needed to be let go of, and I needed to move through whatever that was for me, it was very confusing. It was deeply confusing because it was indeed like this moment took a couple weeks or something. And it was indeed this moment in which it was like, but I don't even understand anymore what the thing is that I need to let go of. I don't even understand anymore what the point is that we are letting go of. Like, am I letting go of the idea of twin flames? Am I going to let go of how I thought I was moving through twin flame guidance? Or am I letting go of something else? Am I letting go of my toxic upbringing that left in my way of thinking, my way of believing, in my memory, a huge, big, fat debris of illusions, nonsense, and hurtful emotions and thoughts, self-deprecating thoughts, self-attacking thoughts. Because I was deeply abused as a child, emotionally, physically, psychologically, and sexually, mentally, on every level anyway. So it was just like, well, a lot of things were there except love and care and understanding and psychological health, giving, psychological sane build up of a personality, emotional safety, sexual safety. So like a lot was there, but all of these very essential things not. There was verbal violence, physical violence, sexual assault. And all of that was presented as something that was not to be questioned, as it was just life. Nothing is going on here. And I very much needed to believe that violently. So that just left a huge debris in my system, especially because I needed to suppress all of that it was so, the facts, the memories, but also the emotions, the reactions, the feelings, the stories, the self-perception, everything needed to be suppressed. Anyway, so that left a whole bunch in my life and makes you continually relive this whole situation with friends and lovers and social and work situations and everything. Because that's just how life sort of works. So you will just relive that until you have processed it and completely left it. Completely and utterly, which I have now. So that's how it goes. But yeah, so what was the craziness deep in my process when I stood before it? Was the crazy, was the brainwashing, was the programming, was the cult mind in me? Which one was it? I was just falling through this process. And how did I do it? With Twin Flame Inner Work, the only Twin Flame Inner Work that is true and real and connected to the divine. With the key tool, we have 4 versions at this point, and an energy system that supports it fully, and guidance and everything. What was it that I needed to let go of in this falling through of that moment in my journey that you will also go through? Did I need to let go of the craziness that I was believing in twin flames, and that I was going deeper and deeper with that, with Twin Flame Inner Work, and that would lead me to union, and what union really is, like you're really one with God, and therefore also with your twin flame. So they must come forward and have an intimate relationship with you too, because that just belongs all together, God and your twin flame. And in the intimate relationship that is made out of divine love, is that the super duper craziness, that you need to let go of, because it's just coercive, crazy, out of your mind ideas that can't be real. So it must all be a fantasy and an illusion that this even exists. Well, we know that, that people like to partner up for a foundation in life, and then they settle down and have a home, and then they start to be helpful to society and whatnot, and gain money, and they start a family, and that's sort of a pattern of behavior that most people sort of subscribe to. But why would there be a version of that is so divinely connected and related, that it is so mind-blowingly different, that you need to run after it like a headless chicken and spend all your money on it, and And then it is actually all brought together by going deeper with the divine, meditating with Divine Mother, and doing the divine inner work and feeling the divine love. And that must all be crazy religious. And why are you doing that? I mean, this really starts to sound like a cult, isn't it? Sounds like a cult. Sounds like a cult. Smells like a cult. Must be a cult. So which one is it? Or was the society the cult that actually had created this narcissistic and sexually abusive situation in my childhood that kept on repeating over and over in my life? And is that actually the cult? Or is like society the cult that protects these kind of abusers by not commenting on them and doing as if nothing is happening there? Like, what is the cult that I needed to let go of? And I was completely confused by it. I had no idea. But you know what I did? I kept on doing the inner work. I kept on being sort of meditative with it. And I allowed it. And I felt as though I went completely crazy there. Because my world image, my image of the world, my preconception, my preconceived notions of how the world worked, how the reality worked, how the universe worked, how God worked even, was completely obliterated. And I didn't know anymore what was left and right or above and below. And I let this being worked out through surrendering into it. And at the end of this process, I started to see the light again. And I saw that the truth was that the twin flame and the relationship with God was the truth. And a society with a social background of having been grown up in a family that is deeply psychologically unwell while not acknowledging that, which made me psychologically unwell. That was the cult that I was letting go of. And I let go of that cult. And I saw it. And then I moved on to a new phase. So there it was, the outcome of this process. There it was. But that is when you truly go through it. That is when you truly give yourself the chance to do the inner work and become uncold-minded through sobering up, through making true spiritual progress, through doing the true spiritual inner work. That's how that goes. That's what will happen to you then. When you dive into that, when you give yourself into that, when you have not given into it, and you might sort of mentally step aside from yourself and look at the relationship from and the situation from the outside. When you look from the outside in, you have separated yourself again. And then you might say, oh, see, I can see it. Yeah. It's a bit crazy, isn't it, to believe in a twin flame? Yeah, it sounds like culty. Yeah, but you have separated yourself now and you're just looking at it instead of experiencing it and experiencing the healing of it. And before you know it, you not only believe again in general societal ideas that not necessarily need to be against you, but when they protect your abusers, then they are. And you've, before you know it, you've like retracted again, and you're just hiding again in this place where you were hiding as a child, crying, hoping that your parents don't come at you again, trying to be normal while it is absolutely not normal, because it's not healthy what is happening with you. You're trying to make it normal, to be a good child so that everything can be normal and you can feel loved, although you're not. But you live in the story that you are. Before you know it, you're there again, because you have withdrawn from the place where you were experiencing it, where you were healing. And you are looking from the outside at the situation, and you're like, oh, yeah, that must be a cold mind. Instead of, no, I am in a cold mind and I need to get rid of it. And the twin flame process is the spiritual process that rids me of it, which is the truth. Which is the truth. So should you be in any sort of twin flame work or reality or group or teaching or whatever that brings you deeper into the illusions, into nonsense, into painful truths instead of ridding you from it, then you might be in a cold mind. It just has the word twin flame on it. And that's sad, because it gives twin flames a bad name, a bad rep, which is not necessary, because it's not the truth. In truth, the true twin flame work, the true twin flame teaching brings you home, brings you into where you're one with God. That's like the eye of the storm, where it is peaceful and truthful. And you're rooted into the truth. You're grounded into the truth. Because you're on earth too, you're also grounded and rooted on earth. But in the first place, you're grounded and rooted in the truth. It sobers you up. It de-brainwashes you. It deprograms you from anything that is happening in your belief system, in your memory, in your mind, your intellect, in your emotions, in your energy. And whatever you're a slave of, you will be freed from. But we often are so much into the slave mindset that we don't know that we are. We don't know what we're a slave to. We can't see it anymore. That's the problem. So when you transpone that to the psychological realm, this phenomenon, just transpone it a little bit. There, what they call this is Well, what do you think about the trauma bond, or like the Stockholm syndrome? That you're so much used to that which suppresses you that you don't know that it does. You agree with your aggressor, your brainwasher. You agree with your brainwasher. And you think that you are so spiritually evolved as well for doing so. That's a psychological phenomenon that this happens to people. But when you do the genuine work, you will always be deprogrammed of whatever it is that you are under the yoke of. Is that a right way to say it? That you are under the suppression of, that you're a slave of. You will be freed. And maybe it could be said in another way, you become the slave of true peace of God. But that analogy might not sound very present day. That's like a traditional way of saying that one in a new sort of way. And where I am now in my consciousness work, that actually does feel like a correct saying. Again, in a new way. That I'm the slave of Divine Mother because I only do what she says all the time. And that's how I am successful in bringing you towards your twin flame.